What is up, you guys? It is your boy Lucius from Toad Trap Tribe here back with another installment of that Naruto. Hold on, that's not right. You saw the title, guys. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're doing solo leveling, and this has been a project of mine for a good long while. I've had a lot of ideas about it, and I'm excited to get into it with you guys. So let's get right into the video. All right, so classic Toad Trap Tribe Isekai shenanigans here. If we are going to play the percentages of the planet, which is what the solo leveling world is based off of, you would probably just fall into a large body of water and never be seen or heard from again. But that would make for a very interesting setup. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take some inspiration from the original story. Now, if you guys know just a little bit about solo leveling, you would understand that Sung Jin Woo doesn't get isekai'd into a new world. Instead, the world that he already occupies changes. We could simulate that ourselves, but in truth, I have been instructed to recreate a traditional isekai environment for you guys. So, in the spirit of that, I have elected to roll a ball into the street, and I would like you guys to go and collect it. Now, don't be alarmed. This is perfectly safe. There is no traffic coming. Just need you to go and get the ball. I'll wait right here. Now that your isekai orientation has been taken care of, let's move on to some fun stuff, namely your hunter rank. Now, this is going to be really important in determining how you fare in these initial encounters, and since there's such a large skill gap in between the various ranks, we need to see where you stand early on. So this is a useful exercise, despite the fact that you're going to be a player in the system and you're going to progressively increase in level. But yeah, quick breakdown. I'm going to spin this wheel one time. We're going to do it together so you can see that I'm not just picking something to make your life miserable. And if it's a low rank, we can probably just re-roll it. I prepared a second wheel for that as well. But without further ado, let's give it a spin. Okay, so you can see here that we got the D rank, which isn't the greatest. So let's go ahead and hop over to the other wheel and see if we can improve our standing. Okay, so that's going to be a no-go, and it looks like we're going to remain a D rank for the time being. You're sprawled out in the middle of a city street, head pounding, chest heaving. It feels like you got hit by a truck. Funny thing is, you did. You were that dumbass who wandered out into the street like a blinking newborn, and now you were flat on your back looking up at the sky like you're bird watching. People gather, phones out, some shouting, some snapping photos, others waiting for blood. You twitch, muscles flex experimentally testing for damage. Miraculously, no breaks. Your entire body ripples with pain, though. But you climb to your feet and stand on wobbly yet vertical legs. Then, like a wall of muscle and confidence, a man parts the crowd as strangers pinball off his muscular frame. He doesn't ask if you're okay, just drags you to the curb like your luggage. Here, D-rank, he grunts, voice like gravel in a blender, slams a plastic card into your chest. You glance at it. Traffic cone orange. Ugly and unmistakable. Your name's there, so is the rank, and the color code that tells everyone exactly what you are. The crowd reads it. D rank. Interest dies. They scatter. The man lingers, though, grinning like this is the best part of his day. Try making yourself useful, he says. Maybe pitch in at a hunter's guild instead of playing speed bump. Then, a slap on the shoulder that nearly buckles your knees, and he's already strutting away. You look up. He's gone. Vanished into a modest, brand new looking building across the street. That's when it starts. The glass doors hiss shut behind you. The modest exterior betrays the character of the buildings inside, much like your typical DMV. The spacious room features multiple cubicles with lines of bodies squirming impatiently. You initially wonder if you walked into a comic convention because of how decked out everyone seemed to be. Some folks openly carrying daggers on their hips and swords on their back. A shoulder knocks you out of your thoughts. Watch it, D-Rank, a familiar voice barks. It's the meathead from before. He jerks a thumb towards a cubicle on the far right of the room that looks like it hasn't been dusted in ages. Over the cubicle hung a white sign with the letters D and E in bold black. Your quest counter is that way, rookie. This is where the real hunters line up. He steps into his place in line amongst an equally rough-looking bunch of individuals, and they fall into conversation, leaving you to your own thoughts once again. Glancing towards the quest counter the man had pointed out, your eyes focus on a loathsome-looking receptionist that you approach cautiously. Her eyes don't even look up from her phone as you clear your throat nervously. A soft sigh from her lips breaches the budding silence. Today's E&D rank dungeons have all been filled for members of a group only. Solo hunters are to be assigned a remedial dungeon for safety reasons. Once she finishes speaking, she taps the opening between the glass that separates her cubicle from the rest of the world. Clearly expecting you to place something there, she huffs impatiently. ID, please. You scramble for that hideous orange ID card and slide it below the glass where her waiting palm slams down dramatically. She punches a few keys onto her computer before sliding the card back underneath the glass towards you, along with a slim black box. Good luck. Next. You retrieve both items and step away from the counter. A faint chime can be heard from below, so you fish your phone out and examine the new notification. A maps link with a location and time stare back at you. Only 30 minutes to spare, you know quietly. Curiosity fueling you, you kneel down and open the black box to find a hunting knife, a first aid kit, and a map of the supposed dungeon you'll be exploring. A pit forms in your stomach. Had all the weapons inside the room been for real? You gently run a finger over the blade of the knife, confirming your suspicion is a thin red line across your pointer. You come face to face with your very first gate, a blue portal just on the outskirts of town, near the woods. The air is so saturated with magic that you can hear the faint humming of resonant energy. A pit forms in the bottom of your stomach, a sense of dread anchoring you to the ground. Turning back now is probably the safest option. A hand clamps down on your shoulder firmly. First portal, rookie? You nod in response. A wide grin emerges from your peripheral, and attached to that cheesing smile was a man sporting a set of worn-in black leather armor. Shallow cuts had been etched into the chest and shoulder pads, adding a few years of service to his gear. On his right arm sat a wooden buckler shield, and slung over his shoulder, tucked away into stitched leather, was a short sword with a black hilt that seemed to trap the light coming from the gate. You had trouble meeting his eyes thanks to his shaggy brown hair, but you could tell that they held the same warmth his smile did. His hand extended towards you. The name's Baldwin. Fellow D-rank hunter and resident remedial dungeon extraordinaire. You shake his hand and raise an eyebrow. You say that like you're proud. Baldwin nodded. Well, sure. I might get all the remedial dungeons, but it's all by design. A brilliant strategy if I do say so myself. How can you be happy getting the worst assignments all the time? It's all about risk and reward, my friend. Baldwin tapped his temple like he was unveiling some grand secret. See, all the other D&E ranks already went in, but not all of them come out. That's where I come in. I wait till the blood settles, and let's say I liberate a few things for the living. You recoil a bit. You mean you loot the corpses. Baldwin either doesn't notice the righteous disgust creeping into your tone, or doesn't care. Ah, don't give me that. You won't be standing on any moral high ground if you're dead, so it's best to use all the resources at our disposal. Now, let's get inside that gate quick like. I bet most of this dungeon has been cleared out, and we need to get a move on before the dungeon boss gets 86'd. Once inside the gate, Baldwin hurriedly presses a finger to his lips in a shushing gesture. He jerks his head towards a fork in the tunnel. You follow closely behind him while your eyes adjust to the dim cave lighting. The air is damp and cool, laced with a metallic hint of copper. The two of you press on in relative darkness until a faint strip of moonlight penetrates the pathway ahead. In that sliver of light, you can see the body of a man slumped over, chin tucked into his chest, unmoving. He's folded in on himself, almost as if contemplating the clean gash across his midsection, undeniably the cause of death. You lurch as you discover the source of the coppery scent, but a firm hand grasps at your shoulder. Baldwin points to a bronze sword glinting just on the edge of your vision. His hand then reaches out to tap onto the hilt of your knife as he points back to the blade on the ground. You nod in understanding. You creep towards the body, crouching on all fours with great trepidation. When you think you're close enough, you stretch out a shaky hand. As you pull the sword free, blood slick on the grip causes it to slip out. The weapon clatters from your grasp and crashes onto the stone floor with a sharp metallic clang. The sound screams through the tunnel. Everything seems to stand stock still. save for Baldwin, who facepalms tiredly. His voice cuts through the stillness like a whip, but he manages not to raise his voice. He's dead, for crying out loud. Now grab the sword before you wake up the whole dungeon. You shake your head, more so in relief than anything else, and reach out for the sword once again more confidently. You ensure your grip around the hilt is as firm as can be just before a gloved hand wraps around your wrist and holds on tightly. Instinctively, you pull away with all your might, but the man that had been sitting in a pool of blood had a monstrous grip and was only ratcheting up the pressure by the second. His face was pale, his hair a mess of dark sweat-matted tufts covering his eyes, though you knew despite that he was staring right through you. You can't. That thing isn't any ordinary D-rank dungeon boss. You have to leave now. Baldwin steps in to try and pry the man's hand off your wrist, but the hysterical adventurer's attention snaps towards the approaching help. With the last embers of his strength, he produces a weak sigil in his free hand, no longer clutching at his blood-soaked middle. A strong gust of wind bursts from his bloody palm, blowing you both away and tearing you out of his grip. Baldwin slams into the opposite cave wall with a sickening thud. The whole corridor groans. You haul yourself into a seated position, just in time to witness the cavern tremble, loose stones tumbling free. One fall leads to another, until a curtain of rubble comes crashing down, burying the tunnel behind you in a cascade of broken earth. Baldwin huffs in disbelief, wide-eyed and still as a statue. Just as quickly, he locks onto the bloody adventurer and flies into pure rage, grabbing the man by the shirt and pinning him harshly onto the rocky wall. What have you done? You trapped us in here, he growls out, his words in a way that doesn't seem fully human. He pulls back his fist, ready to beat the man savagely, but drops his hand once he notices the lifeless form go limp in his hold. He exhales once, as if releasing the vestiges of his aggression he had been saving to club the unfortunate man, and releases him, taking one long step back before turning towards you again. He kicks the bronze blade towards you. Up you go, rookie. Time to move. If we don't clear this dungeon, we can forget about an excavator team coming in to clear that rubble. Nobody is gonna bat an eye over a few missing D-ranks like us. But you heard what that guy said. Something way stronger than us is deep in the cave. Baldwin scoffed. There was one of him and two of us. You're more than welcome to sit here and starve to death, but I'll take my chances with some big ugly monster any day. You sat there in disbelief. Not only was Baldwin actively marching towards danger, but he seemed unbothered by the prospect. You, on the other hand, were reeling. Everything was happening so fast. From getting run over, to talk of dungeons and potential real-life dragons, your world had fallen apart in just 24 short hours. You think back to the time when your life wasn't contingent on monsters and magic, but that world was gone, and this one didn't care if you were ready. As you made your way to the heart of the cave, the once earthy flooring gave way to chipped tile. Vegetation sprung through the cracks along the walls as if Mother Nature sought to reclaim her territory from the invading material. The air was noticeably colder than the rest of the cave was. You feel grateful to have something other than dirt beneath your boots for once. Baldwin, on the other hand, didn't seem too impressed. Instead, his gaze was harsh and focused, trained onto the end of the hallway that opened up into a massive chamber. The large room was lined by a perimeter of torches flickering a pale blue flame. The ceiling towered above you, so much so that you could scarcely believe the structure was built underground. But most notably was the massive bronze statue of a man with winged sandals. Where's the boss? Baldwin questioned, breaking the eerie silence. Your eyes narrow, scanning for any hint of movement. The cavernous chamber remains as still as a church. Your attention locks onto a small dais in the center of the room. You approach it slowly, taking note of the blood splatter on the surface, staining an ancient-looking inscription. It looked fresh. Hermes, messenger of the gods, the inscription read. No sooner do the words leave your lips does the chamber begin to tremble, and the bronze statue of the messenger god begins to stir. Its metallic winged sandals beat with a vitality that was truly impossible. The metal creaked horribly as the wings propelled the giant statue into the air to gaze down upon you imperiously. Behind you, the metallic clang of Baldwin's sword can be heard. His skin adopted a sickly pallor, eyes widened like saucers, adrenaline pumping through his core, his earlier bravado gone in favor of instinct, self-preservation. He turns to flee. The statue's head doesn't move, but its eyes do. It waves his hand. Motion alone kicks up a gale of wind. Razor-sharp wind sighs sail through the air and whiz past Baldwin's retreating form, slicing open his leather armor with acute grazes. The damned thing had missed on purpose. It could have easily cut him down. The statue of Hermes flies overhead to cut off Baldwin's escape route. Its arms raise slowly before it claps its hands together, kicking up an even more potent gust than before. The winds slice and tear at your clothing before morphing into a full-blown vortex. As if you weighed nothing, you're buoyed high off the ground, flailing mightily as the ornate flooring becomes more and more distant. Panic screams of horror die against the malevolent winds. You lose track of Baldwin, but he's undoubtedly faring just as poorly. The rapid movement soon induces nausea, slowly slipping out of consciousness as the airborne statue in the room fade to black. Deep, guttural growl rouses you. You wake with a jolt, eyes darting back and forth, taking in your new surroundings. You quickly realize you're in a crumbling coliseum, long since abandoned. The many rows of seats are weathered and chipped. What were once mighty stone pillars litter the ground in broken heaps. But the source of that growling was still nowhere to be found. A voice chirps from above you.
Error.
You flinch at the sharp noise. Taking your attention away from watching your surroundings invites a large, nightmarish beast to creep into the edges of your vision. Your blood runs cold. A bead of sweat rolls down your face as your body locks in place, afraid to fully turn around. The deep rumble of the beast's growl vibrates the stadium floor beneath your feet. It stalks into frame, allowing you to appreciate the creature in all its terrifying splendor. Standing at 6 feet tall at the shoulders, black fur bristling with rage, and red eyes that burned like molten glass. Its horns were long, twisted spires of bone and keratin that jut out from its skull, the snarling visage of a lion complete with sharp fangs and snapping jaws. Yet, even more disturbing, the horns rose out from the lion's mane. From out of the dense fur, a goat's head merged to the lion's spine unfurled into view and bleated, a horrible sound that grates against your eardrums, making you wince. There seemed no end to the horrors this abomination boasted, and then it delivered the coup de grace. A massive viper the size of a python rose over the monster and poised itself to strike. Its long fangs glinted with potent venom. Your eyes tracked the length of its body only to find it attached to the rear of the snarling big cat. Instinctively, you back away slowly, only for the chimera to advance, stalking you with predatory intent. The viper head strikes in an instant when you get caught watching the main body. Its fangs sink into the flesh of your shoulder. The venom burns through your system like liquid fire, pain forcing your mouth open in a silent scream of agony. You drop to the ground, body convulsing violently as the toxin gets to work, attacking your insides without delay. Images race through your mind of ancient heroes and monsters locked in a desperate battle. Even the gods that commanded them were part of the struggle. The images seem to pour into you, merging with your consciousness. A white-hot sting in your head makes you feel like it's going to split open any moment. You clutch at your temples to stay the pain, but it's useless. Your body flails haptically for a short while longer, before everything goes to black, and then the voice returns.
Error. Player profile unrecognized. Initiating override.
You wake back up in the middle of the chamber next to the lifeless body of Baldwin, only this time, his head was no longer attached. Across the room, his lopped-off head stared at you blankly. You recoil in disgust and fear, scampering to your feet once more. Your eyes dart around the chamber quickly, ready to spot any opening to flee from the bronze god who had killed Baldwin. But Hermes was nowhere to be found. You breathe a sigh of relief as the adrenaline starts to leave your body, and then you collapse, this time embracing the comfort of the dark that pulls your vision and rest. What is up, you guys? It is Lucius once again. I hope you enjoyed that first episode of the solo leveling Isekai as much as I enjoyed creating it. I wanted to try a bit of a different style for you and do a storytelling modeled after my current favorite author. So I hope it went well. I hope you guys are excited for the next episode. And once again, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton, and I do appreciate it. Expect these episodes to come out on Fridays, potentially weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how intensive these scripts become. And you can expect about 13 episodes of this series. So, with all that being said, thank you once again,